gentlemen, welcome to another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and thank you for joining me once again for another episode of OTP Tuesdays. That's right, today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2020, and by now, you ought to know what that means. That means another episode of OTP Tuesdays is coming at you, and that is where we talk about everything that happened over the past weekend, and we look forward into next weekend as well. This one, we're talking all about the Big Buck GNCC, round number 1. It happened down in Union, South Carolina. I was there. There's a good chance you were there, and we got 3 guests coming on the show tonight. They were all there, but before we get to that, I want to say a big shout out once again. Our intro music, everything that you just heard, that the whole drumming thing, the whole guitar thing, all that music that played, that was recorded by one of the original co-hosts of this very podcast, Devin Byram, and it was also recorded by former 250 West Supercross champion Justin Hill. So, big thanks once again to Justin Hill and Devin Byram for recording that intro. I still think it's pretty cool that that's the one that we get to play to start off every show now. That was actually written and recorded in the room that the podcast started in. So, a little while after the podcast developed, Devin was stepped away to journey into furthering his music career. He got linked up with Justin Hill, ended up playing drums with him. Justin was over at Devin's house, which Devin house is where we used to record the show at. So it all came full circle that Justin and Devin recorded that intro for this podcast in the room that this podcast started in. So I think that's really cool that we start the show off with that every time, and it adds a little bit more sentimental value to it. So big thanks to both of them once again for that intro. Also, big thanks to our friends at Armored Graphics. You can find them armoredgraphics.com or on the social interwebs at Armored Graphics. They are another large part of this program, this podcast, this thing that we got going on. They designed our logo, designed our shirts, designed our graphics, helped me out with graphics. We got a specialty OTP award coming at you that we'll be handing out down in the sands of Florida that I'm only going to tease you about. I'm not going to tell you what it is about, but you can check it out, Armored Graphics. Get yourself a set of graphics, t-shirts, hats, whatever you want to use. They're in the process of building their website. As soon as they get that back up, we'll give you more information and more details on how to go about doing that. Also, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Ray Newton. Ray Newton, we talked about him last time. He is a photographer, does a lot of the local series, does a lot of the national series, takes pictures of everyone, puts them up on SmugMug. You can go there and purchase the full resolution picture from Ray, so he gets a picture of everyone on the track. And if you like a picture of yourself, you can go ahead and get it from him. It's only, I think, $5, $6, something like that. So not a lot, and it gives you some pretty cool pictures to save and hold on to forever. That being said, there's a lot of photographers and a lot of media people, and I kind of went over this in my head a little bit as I was drawing up the notes for this show. And Ray's a good kid, and like I mentioned, he's young and he's out there with a camera doing what he does. But we got like Darren Chapman. Darren Chapman takes some very good photographs. He works for a lot of different companies, so when he's at the races, he pretty much gets those companies' riders. But he does some really good work. You can check his work out. Ken Hill, he's the GNCC series photographer. He gets some good shots as well. He shoots everybody at the GNCCs. You can find his stuff there. Mason Rader does the GNCC highlight videos, which you can go and watch now. It just came out tonight, so if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty cool. And you might even hear a familiar voice on there. So you can head over there now and check that out. I finally made the cut. I finally got into an M Raider edit. So I was pretty pumped on that, which we'll go into a little bit more detail about how that happened here in just a moment. But I shared it on the Pipe Podcast Facebook page, and GNCC shared it. Obviously, Mason shared it. So you can go and check that out there. But that leads me to my next thing. This podcast struggled with consistency over the years. I've been doing this for a little over 2.5 years now. Struggled with consistency, would go months on end without posting. 2020 New year, new me, new podcast. We're hitting it hard. We're hitting it consistent. We're putting out at least one show every week for OTP Tuesdays. And I got some really cool interviews lined up to actually sit down and do a full format podcast. That being said, since I've been hitting it consistently, I've really seen it paying off. A lot more downloads are coming in. A lot more people are listening, and it's getting out to a lot more people. So do me a favor. If you like this podcast, tell a friend about it. Shoot them the link. Tell them to check it out. We talk all things. I'm not going to lie. Right now, we're pretty East Coast focused. Obviously, with emphasis on GNCC, the full gas sprint enduros, national enduros, mid-east hare scrambles, and then whatever other local series that anyone wants to let me know about. I'll be more than happy to talk about them as well. But if you like this, like I said, give someone the link, let them know about it. Just tell them to listen to it. I mean, these races, they're far away for a lot of us, so you can always throw it on your way to a race. Hopefully, not sure if this is the case or not, but hopefully these podcasts get you pumped up and get you ready for race weekend. That is my goal. That is why we're doing it. As we mentioned, OTP Tuesdays, a little bit different format. We're bringing you interviews every single week, trying to get some top people. I don't want to say top guys because we got our first WXC rider that's going to be joining us on here tonight as well. And it's not only riders. I'm going to have mechanics, industry people, basically anyone and everyone. If they got an interesting story or an interesting take on the weekend, I want to talk to them and we'll get them on the show. So if you do like this, tell a friend about it. Tell someone about it. Have them listen, because the whole point of this is to grow off-road as a whole. It's not just to grow this. It's to bring a bigger spotlight to all of these riders that are working so hard to accomplish their goals in off-road racing. So if you're on the podcast app right now, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you'll get updates when they all come out. And like I said, if you could, share it with somebody else. If you hate the podcast and thinks it sucks, well, sorry. But you can still hit subscribe and download it anyway. You don't have to listen to it. But, yeah, maybe if you do hate it, just kind of keep that one to yourself. But, no, I'm just kidding. Hopefully nobody hates it. But if you do hate it, I'm being dead serious. Message me and let me know. I want to know what you like and what you don't like, because we're trying to tailor this and make it good for everybody. That being said, I will quit rambling. One of the things that people have hated in the past is how much I talk at the beginning of these things. So I'm going to quit rambling right there, and we're going to get into this weekend of GNCC racing. That is right. The moment we've been waiting for since October of last year is finally here. Round number 1 officially kicks off GNCC racing, and it also officially kicks off the race season in full effect. We had round number 1 of the Sumter National Enduro. We had round number 1 at GTR for the Kendo Full Gas Sprint Enduro, and now we finally kick things off round number 1, the VP Fuels Racing Big Buck GNCC. So now they're all in full effect. That's right. From here on out, besides a little break in July, our weekends are going to be all racing. Every weekend is spoken for until November, other than, like I mentioned, that small stretch there in July where we get a little bit of a break. But things are started. A lot of storylines happen. First, we'll go over the results. Caleb Russell doing what Caleb Russell does. He gets his 61st overall win at the GNCC series, adding to that overall bike total, chasing down the overall quad total, which I actually, for some reason, just found out this weekend existed. I thought Caleb had the outright most wins. Turns out he doesn't. I think there's 2 quad riders, Chris Borich being one of them, that has more wins than Caleb, but he is chasing those numbers down nonetheless. He gets a pretty decisive victory over Coastal Racing Husqvarna's Ricky Russell, which Ricky, I'm not going to say he came out of nowhere, but he came out of nowhere. Ricky put together a great ride. Him and Caleb Russell both kind of took off and were in their own zip code, took the boys to Gapplebee's right off the bat as they put their heads down and hammered down. They created quite the gap between each other. Ricky was able to reel him back in there for a little bit before Caleb went back and put some more space in between them. But also finishing in the 3rd place position one of tonight's guests. We'll hear from him in just a little bit. Joshua Strang. That is right. The only other rider on the front line of the GNCC series that has won an overall championship that is not named Caleb Russell is Josh Strang, your 2010 GNCC XC1 champion, coming out swinging, starting things off with a win on that Babison line Monster Energy Kawasaki, landing on the podium in third place, where he ran for half the race. He worked his way up from sixth, made his way into third, and never looked back after that. Stu Baylor gave him a run for his money and made up a lot of time on him, but Josh was able to hold him off and race his way to a third place finish. So we will be hearing from Josh here in just a little bit and hear his account of the race and just catch up with him in general. Going to one of our next guests on the show, Mike Witkowski on that Ampro Factory Yamaha team gets the XC2 victory, which was his first career XC2 victory, and it was good enough for 5th place overall. So we'll be talking to Mike here on the show tonight as well to hear how his race went. Johnny Gerard making his return back to racing on that Trail Jesters KTM. He ends up 2nd place in XC2, which awesome to see him come back so strong. He had a very solid ride, led some laps, and was out in front before Mike was able to catch up with him. So Johnny Gerard, no doubt, looks to be in that title contention picture as well. And in third place, rounding out the final step on the XC2 podium, is Coastal Racing Bicon, I think that's what it is, Bicon, Husqvarna of Craig DeLong, which Craig, I would say, was the favorite or is the favorite coming into 2020. Craig has been in that XC2 class right on the cusp of championships. Unfortunately, he's had a couple tough guys to battle with over the past few years. So Craig DeLong, no doubt, one of the favorites to come home with that championship this year. Starts off with some solid points, gets himself a 3rd place finish, all doing so rocking a new number. So it took me a while to figure out who in the heck he was. I completely forgot that he announced that he was changing his number, so I kept seeing that bike, wondering, who is this? And then it dawned on me that it was Craig DeLong. So awesome ride by Craig. He just barely edges out Jonathan Johnson on that Phoenix Racing Honda, who also put in a great ride as well. We saw Jonathan on the podium to end the year last year at Ironman, and he was battling for a podium again this year, but it did end up going to Mike Witkowski, Johnny Gerard, and Craig DeLong. And then also, the FMF XC3 class had a battle on his hands. It was actually one of the more interesting ones to keep up with throughout the day. Jason Rains, and I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to double check while I am sitting here. And of course, the stories are gone. Jason Rains, he's either 42 or 48. I think it's 42. I'm going to go with 42. Anyway, he's over 40 years old. He comes out, figures, what the heck? My daughter raced in the morning race, did pretty good. Let me race in the afternoon race. It's right down the road from his house. Jason does the Yamaha demo days, so he is on a Yamaha machine, no doubt. He pulls the whole shot, and not only does he pull the whole shot, he leads the majority of the dang race. Before eventually, I think he had a crash is what I read somewhere, and ended up losing the lead to the 7 Deuce of the Woods. Zach Hayes on a KTM ended up getting the XC3 win, but no doubt a strong showing by Jason Rains as he comes out, grabs the whole shot, leads a hefty majority of the race, but the win would eventually go to Zach Hayes in that XC3 class. Jason Rains finishes 2nd, and Cole Madison straight off the couch and back into our hearts. He decides he wants to go racing this year. He gets the Pro-Am win at Full Gas, gets a 125 sent to him, gets it all set up within the past week, and rides it to a 3rd place podium position in that XC3 class. So super awesome for him. Pretty pumped for Cole, pretty pumped for Jason, pretty pumped for Zach. So Zach's a newcomer to that XC3 class, and so is Cole. Jason Rains, he's raced a few of them before, so he's no stranger to it. We saw him doing battle a bunch with Jesse Ainsley over the past couple years. So I know that Jason has raced Florida in the past couple years, so I'm not sure if his plan is to be down there or not, but hopefully we will see him down there and mixing it up with the young guns in that XC3 class. So that is your 1 o'clock pro results. That's how it shook out. That's what happened. That's where they finished at. Also worth noting, Brody Johnson, brother of Jonathan Johnson, also on a Phoenix Racing Husqvarna. He will take the class win in either lights A or 4-stroke A. I think it's 4-stroke. No, I think it's lights A. Nevertheless, he takes the win in his class and also takes the top amateur award. So he was the fastest amateur rider in the race, which is awesome for Brody. Brody's been lighting the world on fire here lately. I do not think that is going to be his last top amateur award of the season. So big shout out to Brody Johnson, who goes out there and gets it done. Starts off round number 1, super strong, which leads us into last but certainly not least, our 10 a.m. amateur race in the morning featuring the WXC Women's Pro Riders. They start things off on the front row in that morning race where they would sweep the overall podium between the WXC riders. So it was a very competitive, very fast race. Also, an important thing to note about this WXC race in particular is that there was 16 WXC riders on the front line, which is the most that I can remember in recent history. I've seen it down to as little as 3 or 4 women's pro riders too. So to have 16 just shows how much the sport is growing, and not only just in general, but even the women getting into it as well. A lot of new faces moving up from the women's amateur classes, women's B classes, stepping up to the front line in that women's pro class. So it's really awesome to see there. Also got a lot of big names in that class, Shelby Turner being one of them. She came down from Canada. She races enduro cross and a lot of stuff up in Canada. So she's been down here racing some races down south. She was at Full Gas, I believe, and then she was at Big Buck this past weekend. Also, as we mentioned, the women's amateur riders, women's B riders, they move up into the WXC class. So 16 riders on that front row in the 10 a.m. class, but it would be Becca Sheets, the 551, former GNCC champion herself. She is also the first guest on tonight's episode, so we will get into a conversation with her in just a few moments here to hear about how her race went and how she was able to go out there and capitalize by starting off 2020, grabbing the first win on that Fly Racing Maxxis-backed Yamaha that she switched to over the offseason. The second place battle came down to the wire. I believe the pass was actually made within a mile of the finish line, but it was the number 1 3-time defending series champion going back to back to back, the number 1 Rockstar Energy Husqvarna of Taylor Jones that ends up in second place. But as we mentioned, it was hard fought. It did not come easy. She made the pass with just a mile left to go, where she got around Pro Yamaha's Rachel Archer, who would round out the WXC podium in third place. Taylor came through, I believe it was the second lap, missing the front number plate. Front fender is cracked, flopping around. Left side shroud is broken. It's cracked. It's flopping around. So she ended up having a bad get off. She said she hit a tree out there in the woods, lost some time there. So she was able to battle back, push through that, and obviously you got to hit a tree. Pretty hard to bang your bike up that bad, but she was able to regain her bike, capitalize on that, and charge back up to the front. She was running second, third, fourth throughout most of the race, but she was running in fourth going into the last lap and ended up getting the pass, as we mentioned, over Rachel Archer to finish in second place. Rachel Archer obviously putting together a good race as well. She's over here from New Zealand, so she was able to go out there and battle her way to a podium position to start off round number 1, so no doubt that she is going to be pumped about that. Shelby Turner, who we just mentioned, ended up finishing in the 4th place position. She had a very strong showing as well, riding as far back as 6th place, worked her way back up into that 4th place position. Rachel Goodish, not sure what happened there, wasn't able to get a chance to talk to her. She ran 3rd the first half of the race, before dropping back to ultimately finish 5th, so rounding out the top 5 there. And then Mackenzie Tricker stays in the 5th and 6th spot all day long, ends up finishing in 6th place. So not sure what happened there. Wasn't able to speak with her as well, but Mackenzie, one of the girls that we're used to seeing on the podium. So I mean, this level of competition that's picked up in this class specifically is a lot. I mean, they've all pushed each other to go faster and faster over the past few years. So no telling what went on there. A lot of fast girls in that class, but it was Becca Sheets who takes the round number 1 win. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and welcome our first guest of the night to the podcast. She is a former GNCC champion and current reigning ISDE world champion, Becca Sheets. Becca, how's it going tonight?
It's going pretty good. Been in sunny Florida for the last couple days, so just enjoying the weather.
It's a lot better than up here. It was cold and rainy all day long, so you win. But
I do win, but it is pretty nice in Charlotte, even when it's raining.
That is true. So I guess everybody wins.
Yeah.
So obviously the big story coming out of the weekend, you come away with the round 1 win on a brand new bike, brand new team, brand new setup. Everything changed this year, and it seems to be the story throughout all the classes. It seems like silly season was really silly. There was a lot of changes. Obviously, you were the biggest change in the WXC class, switching over to the Yamaha. How's everything going with the new team, with the new bike, with the new setup? Just how are you feeling with it so far?
Overall, I feel awesome about it, but you say it's new, but it's actually super old. I last rode Yamaha in 2016, and Jay Downhour did my suspension for me. Johnny was my, I don't know if Johnny's like my mechanic, my manager. He does all kinds of awesome things for me, and it was Johnny and Tyler, who also wrenches on bikes for me and with me. And so back then, Johnny used to wrench on my bike. So that's the only change. Like, it's kind of like an old setup, and I remember that it worked for me back in those few years on Yamaha, and yeah, so I just felt like it was time to go back to the old. So we made it new again, and it's awesome.
It's interesting you say that because I saw you at GTR a few weeks ago, and one of the questions I asked you was how you were liking the new bike, and your response was that you forgot how much you missed it until you rode it. Can you tell the difference between, because correct me if I'm wrong, you actually won your GNCC championship on a Yamaha, right?
Yep.
So can you tell the difference at all, or do you feel more comfy on like the brand new body style bike versus the old frame and everything that you rode before?
Yeah, like you said, it was like in 2016, and they were so different. And from the end of 2016, I never even sat on anybody else's Yamaha or rode one just for fun. So it wasn't until a couple months ago that I rode this newer 250F, and I think, like, I don't even know all the changes exactly. I know, like, the frame itself is, like, a little bigger on the sides, and it's a little narrower, and I think I can feel a little bit of a difference. It definitely feels a little more narrow, but it still feels like solid as ever, and it's just got that comfortable feeling to me that I remember.
Awesome. So it's good you're able to obviously jump back on it and feel comfy as you go out at the first sprint enduro. Won a few tests, led a good portion of the day there, and then come out at round number 1 of GNCC. You get the win by like 45 seconds over second place. But how does that feel? I know last year it came down to the wire over that WXC championship going into the last round. You still had a chance to win it, and I know you had like a truck and everything picked out for winning the championship and everything, and you had your sights focused on that. Obviously, it didn't turn out the way that you wanted it as far as ending 2019. So how does it feel to come out in 2020 and straight up get the win?
It feels really good. I mean, I've been racing GNCCs for quite a few years, and I've never won the very first round. So obviously it's a huge accomplishment, but at the same time, Um, I know it's gonna be a challenge this year, so like just like ready for the next race. I'm just already getting ready for it, and just kind of mentally and physically, and like just so looking forward to like just keep going, really.
Yeah, I mean that's a hell of a way to start it, and obviously carrying a lot of momentum going into the next few rounds. Obviously, rounds 2 and 3, back-to-back weekends, and coming off this win, I'm sure it has to do a lot for your confidence going into those rounds. But going back to Big Buck, it used to not be the first round. We used to start in Florida, and now I think this is the third time starting at Big Buck because we missed last year. How did this year's Big Buck course differ than what we normally see? Because I know you guys were down there a little bit beforehand, so you kind of saw the rain coming and saw the track drying out and shaping in to what it eventually ended up Sunday being. So how did you like the track this year compared to the usual dry, dusty conditions that we see there?
I really liked it. I mean, the track ended up being so perfect, and a lot of people have said this, like, it was the best Big Buck dirt that we've ever had. But honestly, Big Buck, even when it's dry and dusty, like, it's just one of my favorite tracks. Something about the dirt, the roots there, like, it's just my style of GNCC racing when things are a little technical, but like fast and flowy, and yeah, so like obviously it shaped up to be super great this year, and I would definitely say it was the best yet.
Awesome. And obviously your riding shows that. But then my last question, it's really more of a fan perspective, and I'm at a ton of different races all the time too, so I kind of get to see a lot of the racing throughout the year. But just sitting there thinking about it, I mean, it's hard to not bring up Taylor in a conversation. She's obviously been pretty dominant since she's been over here. But you guys, I mean, racing the sprints together and then racing the GNCCs together, you have a lot of time racing straight up against not only her, but like Mackenzie Tricker. Now we got Rachel Archer in the mix. I mean, constantly racing every single weekend in different formats of racing. Do you think that helps that competitive edge in really wanting to beat her and wanting to be the best every weekend? Or how does that kind of factor in racing almost every weekend in various different styles, I guess?
I I get what you're saying. Like, well, with full gas, Taylor she's a world champion from ISCE. Like, she is really a really great rider at sprinting, and it sucks there because you can't really, like, I can't watch her ride, like, I just have to learn for myself and try to, like, figure it out, and it's something I've been trying so hard to figure out for the last few years, and I've gotten a lot better at it. But yeah, she's just a really great sprint rider, and GNCC is obviously she's just really great. Like, she just goes out there and pins it, and she makes it happen. And so, yeah, I watched her do this, year after year, and obviously it's definitely what drives my competition. Like, the more I see it, the more I want to be that or beat that, So it's really awesome, though, because I feel like I've gotten to know them a little bit, just racing so closely, weekend after weekend. And, I think we all have this respect for each other, and all three of us work really, really hard. So it's just really cool. Like, as I get older, I don't know, I'm just learning to appreciate it more, just appreciate my surroundings, and just see how fast and talented these women are. Like, it's just so incredible.
How important or how big of a role do you think that this competition between and I hate to keep referring back to you three, but you three have kind of put yourself on your own ballpark of running out there together and really pushing each other and pushing the speeds. I mean, we used to see GNCCs in that morning race, sportsman A-riders sweeping the podium, and then maybe like Casey and them would be 6th or 7th overall and winning WXC. And now it's not too often that anyone even breaks onto the overall podium with you all. So how much has that played into the progression of WXC? And seeing our biggest WXC class that I can remember seeing at a GNCC this past weekend, And not only is it growing, it's getting so much more competitive.
Yeah, for sure. When I raced my first GNCC, Maria Forsberg lapped me. Okay, I was like, what the heck? I didn't know what I was doing, but and at that time, like Maria was already kind of dominating over Mandy, who used to dominate before her. So, so Maria came, and then Casey comes over, and she has to take over Maria, and then she kind of took the lead and pushed me to go faster and faster. And all this time I've come kind of through the pack, and I've seen the class improve, and I remember when Maria Forsberg got her first overall podium, and it was like a huge deal. And yeah, like these days we just I don't know, it's just elevated so much and over the last 8 years, and it's just really cool. Like Rachel Archer coming in, Tim Cotter showed us this video that she made a couple years ago. She's pretty young, and she was over in New Zealand, and she was talking about looking up to Taylor and how she wanted to come over here and race GNCCs. That was her goal, and fortunately for her, she was able to make that happen, and she's over here chasing her dream, and she's super competitive in our class right now. So it's just so awesome for her, and we've got a lot of awesome girls coming up through the pack actually now, and Jocelyn Barnes, who won the B class last year, and Allie Phillips, who was right there with her. The girls are coming, and I think there's even more younger girls behind on the littler bikes. So it's just awesome. I think it's going to keep growing.
Yeah, I think you're right, and thank you as far as everyone is concerned, because I know you've been a big help in growing all the women's classes and trying to get more women out there racing. So thanks for that, and thanks for going out there and pushing the boundaries, and really all of you girls rather, pushing this to a whole nother level here. So it's really cool to see, and it's really cool to, in a small way, be a part of just being around the races and watching it all develop. But Becca, I appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. Is there any other person you'd like to thank?
Yeah, well, just going back really quick, you're welcome for helping grow the sport, but I just feel so lucky to be a part of it. I've wanted to do this since I was a little girl, so it's so awesome to just see it happening before my eyes, and I'll have stories for a lifetime about my lifetime, so it's sweet. And I really want to thank my fiance Tyler. Him and I are getting married in August, which is awesome, and he does so much for me. He builds my race bikes. He helps me mentally. He's just the best guy ever. And Johnny Gallagher has helped me out for so many years. I can go on and on. This is just a podcast. Anyway, I just have such a great team. Jay Downhour from JDP Suspension. If you need your suspension done, call Jay Downhour because he's awesome. And yeah, just all my main sponsors.
Between you and Stu and everybody else I've been seeing JDP on, I think I might be calling him here soon to get my bike dialed into.
And you're on a Yamaha. He's got the butter for it.
Sweet.
Call him up.
Good to hear. Well, Becca, thank you again, and congratulations on the engagement. That's the first I've heard of that, so that's awesome news.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations to you and Tyler both, and look forward to seeing the trio of you, Tyler, and Johnny out at the races throughout the rest of the year, and good luck on the rest of your 2020.
Heck yeah. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Becca.
All right. See ya.
So there was our WXC winner on the weekend, Becca Sheets, taking the time out and speak with us, tell us a little bit about her race and background, and switching over to that new yet somewhat familiar bike, because she did ride a Yamaha in the past, so makes the switch back, and it looks like it's paying off so far as she comes out and gets her first ever round one win, as she mentioned. So awesome news there. And it's actually pretty cool because while I think nobody in the world was surprised to see Becca on the podium at round number one, I think there was a lot of people surprised including myself, to see me on the podium at round number 1. So it turned out to be an interesting weekend for me. I had everything loaded up. Big Buck, I did a whole post about it. It was my first race ever. It was the first time I ever got a podium, I think it might have been the next year or a couple years later. It was the first place that I ever worked for Racer TV. The first time, it was where I worked for them the second time. It was where I did my first pro rider interview when Stu Baylor won round number 1 in 2017. I did the interview that ended up going on the NBC show, so it was my first pro rider interview of any kind, and it happened to be Stu Baylor's first XC1 win, so that was a pretty neat story in and of itself. So a lot of different firsts for me. I raced the first full gas there. Big Buck has just always been somewhere special to me because of all the firsts and things that have happened there. This was supposed to be my first ever 3-hour race. Between everything I've done and all the years I've been involved with GNCC, I've never actually raced a 3-hour race. So had my bike loaded up. It was going to be my first ever 3-hour race. I told my parents, told them to watch on Racer TV. I told my dad, I was like, this is going to be one and done. I planned on racing one 3-hour race and calling it good for this season because I wanted to be able to get out in the woods and take pictures and take videos and cover the race for podcast purposes because I have a lot more going for me doing this and bringing you guys the news and the content and the info than I do going out to try to battle for a 10th place in a B class. So it was going to be my only 3-hour race and then call it good for the rest of the year, still be at them all and just hang out in the woods and find something to make myself busy. Told my dad came up. Well, it turns out Sunday morning, I get a text from Rodney Tomlin. It just says, I need you now. So I'd been talking to him, told him if he needed any help to let me know. Well, he ended up telling me, he said, hey, I need you to announce the 10 a.m. race and I need you to do podiums. Now, I worked with Racer TV in the past. I never completed a season. I went there twice and never completed a season. So that tells you all you really need to know about that. I mean, it was my first job in the industry. It was my first job announcing and kind of got thrown into the biggest pinnacle of the sport that there is as far as the world of off-road racing. And I made some dumb decisions. It's all my fault. And that's the reason why I quit working with them. But it's been a few years since then. I've gained a whole lot of experience. I've gained a whole lot of knowledge, and I've grown up a lot. So I knew that all I needed was just the opportunity to prove myself again. And so I was reaching out to everyone that I could. Turns out it paid off as I was granted that opportunity. Rodney told me he needed me for the 10 a.m. race and to do podiums. And I told him, I said, look, I got my bike here. None of it's ready to go because I'm Tyler Shepardson, and why would my bike be ready to go at race time? I was like, I need to get my bike prepped. I need to get everything ready. I need to get my bottles ready. I need to eat some food. I need to put the pads back in my helmet. I need to do a little bit of prep to my bike. There's a lot of stuff I needed to do. But I said, if I can help out, if you need my help for the 1 o'clock race as well, then I won't race, and I'm fully committed. I'm part of the crew for the rest of the day. And he said, all right, we'll do that. So right then and there, racing went out the window as this was a way bigger opportunity for me going forward, like I said, than to race my first 3-hour race. So I went up there and announced the 10 a.m. race, so kind of called the action as the race unfolded, and then I was on the podium, did the podium interviews for the WXC class, which, as I mentioned, they sweep the podium, so there were no sportsman riders. It was Becca, Taylor, and Rachel that rounded out the podium, so I was up there, and I think they were all a little bit shocked to see me up there as well. So it was really cool how it all worked out. So we ended up doing that and then started off the live show at 1 p.m. in the broadcast booth right next to Rodney Tomlin and Johnny Gallagher. Me and Johnny going back and forth for a while till Rodney got done with starts. Rodney came back over, and then all three of us were there for a while. And then it was actually really cool. It was such an awesome experience. I remember before I was all nervous. I'd never announced anything. I'm talking about not even like a local motocross race where I'm up in a tower that no one can see me. When I was thrown in the booth before, I mean in 2017, I really didn't have anything to do, so they're like, oh, go in the booth. And it was the scariest, most nerve-wracking thing ever. And if that wasn't already enough, none other than Jason Wygant himself happened to be there racing the Big Buck GNCC. He gets thrown in the booth with me. So this is in 2017, it was my first race ever. Had no clue what was going on. Had all the nerves, all the jitters. It was absolutely insane. I'm in there. Next thing I know, I got Rodney Tomlin on my left-hand side and Jason Wygant on my right-hand side, and it's me in the middle trying to have some type of conversation and provide some type of input on this race that was going on. I didn't know when I could talk, what I should say, what I shouldn't say. It was like the most nerve-wracking thing in my life, but it was also pretty cool because I sat there and looked left and looked right and wondered how on God's green earth did I get myself in that position. It was pretty cool. I got just a couple pictures, and they're just a couple candid pictures of the moment, but I'll forever be able to say that my first time announcing was with two legends of the sport in Jason Wygant and Rodney Tomlin. So fast forward to this time, I've announced Full Gas for the past 2 seasons. I've announced at Motivated for the Beat the Heat series. I've announced GP races. I've done MMA commentary. I do this podcast where obviously I'm talking a lot. I have a lot more experience, and I've gotten to know all the riders a lot better and really learned the sport a lot better. So I was much, much, much more prepared going into this one, and I felt like I actually had some valuable input. I knew some of the behind-the-scenes stories, and I tried to share that information the best that I could. We went out and I did the pit reporting, so I was actually on camera, talked to the Sherco team. Andrew DeLong had to change a whole rear brake system. Got to talk to his mechanic Gino in the Phoenix Racing Honda pits. That was pretty cool. Got to do that interview. I was in the Rockstar Husky pits for a while hanging out. They wrote a pit board, said Mamba mentality, that they held up to Thad, who, as we know, was battling through a knee injury, he ended up pulling off the race from that. But I was able to make a quick comment on that as I saw it, and then the camera went to it. And I don't know, it was such an overall cool weekend. And I think what surprised me the most is the outpouring of support and comments that I got for my job announcing, which it meant the world to me. It was so cool to see so many people take time out of their day to reach out, even if it's just a small comment like, hey, good job. I had a couple people call me. I had people text me. I had people send me messages. It was just all in all such a really cool experience, and I'm so thankful that I was able to get yet another chance with the Racer TV crew, and sounds like I might be at a few more in the future going forward, so we'll see how all that pans out, and I'll kind of leave it at that. I mean, it was a really cool experience, and I appreciate it a lot, and it's definitely not something that I take for granted anymore. I realize the importance of it, and I realize that how big GNCC is and how important it is to the sport, and especially with growing the podcast and trying to get more involved. That was definitely the right move to make, and I couldn't be more thankful to Rodney and everyone else involved in the decision to let me in there and let me announce, and yeah, I mean, that's really all I can say. I'm really happy with how it went. I'm really happy I was there, and I'm really happy that could get in there and run my mouth a little bit, because obviously I love talking about racing. I love the sport, and I love all the storylines, and it was pretty cool. So thanks again to every one of them. Tim Cotter, of all people, he's the president of MX Sports. I believe that's his official title. When I got there on Saturday, I'm riding my bike down the road. He stops his side-by-side in the middle of the road and tells me that my podcast was good and that he's been listening to it. So it blows my mind that anybody listens to this thing. Like I mentioned, it's grown so much over the past few weeks. I started doing this weekly thing, I think, at the end of January. And since then, I mean, I've seen exponential growth week after week in the podcast. So I couldn't be more thankful for each and every single one of you that listen, each and every single one of you that follow us on social media and keep up to date with the podcast. I think I met more people this weekend that I had not met before that listen to the podcast than I ever have, which was absolutely awesome in itself. I was wearing my OTP shirt, so I think a lot of people recognize me, but just the people that come up and say that they listen to it, including Tim Cotter, of all people. Like, Tim Cotter is a decorated announcer himself. I mean, he's so involved with the sport and everyone in it, and He's such at the pinnacle of everything that we do. So for him to even listen to my show, even if he told me it sucked, I would be absolutely honored that he listened to it. So for him to listen to it and tell me it was good, as well as not just him, I mean everybody else that came up and talked to me over the weekend, thank you so much. Even if you didn't talk to me, even if you didn't get a shirt or anything like that, if you're listening to this right now or have listened to us in the past, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means so much to me. I really appreciate it. Like I said, the goal is to grow it, but I will stop rambling and going down the same rabbit hole that it seems like I go down a lot. But I'm really appreciative for everything, and appreciative to all these riders and industry people and people in general that take time out of their day to now come on here and speak with me. That being said, we're going to move things into our second guest of the day, our XC2 Big Buck winner and Pro Yamaha's Mike Witkowski. Mike, how's everything going today?
Everything's going well. Just kind of winding down from kind of a long day today. Just got back in the swings of just training again. But yeah, doing well.
Good deal. Glad to hear that. And first things first, I got to ask you. I actually, we were just talking a second ago, and I forgot to mention it. But during the broadcast, I mentioned that you were living in your camper on the at the shop. So, have you moved into your house yet, or are you still full training mode in the camper there?
No, it was 2 months of just living in my camper. I mean, my camper's not very big, so it's just nonstop. I guess work. It was just kind of like just a small area, and that's all I needed, I guess.
Well, heck yeah. So you're in your house now?
Yeah. I just moved in probably a week before the race, the Big Buck race. So yeah, just been here for a week now and just kind of adjusting. So
sweet, good.
But yeah, good.
Home sweet home. So you got a lot more room to spread out now.
Yeah, just moving everything in, but it's been good.
Heck yeah. Well, Mike, obviously the big change this year, switching teams, switching bikes, switching from a 2-stroke to a 4-stroke. A lot of changing, moving down here to be closer to the team. I mean, just a whole lot of changes going on in your world. How's everything going with the new bike, the new team? How's everything gelling down there in South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, everything's going real well. The team's been, I've mentioned it before, they're more like family than anything. And obviously this Yamaha FX is really good. It was proven when Josh Toth rode it like a couple years ago. And, yeah, the whole team's been awesome. And obviously the bike worked really good on Sunday. I think we I wanted to come in as the underdog and kind of just secretly prove a point. And I think we kind of did that and proved that this Yamaha is really good.
I'm glad that you said that, because I have heard that more than one time this past weekend. Your name being associated with the underdog, it was brought up. Maybe you're not being one of the top few guys contending for a title, and I find that absolutely silly. Like I can't believe that anybody said that. I mean, you were battling for podiums all last year long. You get on the new team now. This really didn't come as a surprise to me. Like, everyone's saying that I expected you to be up front. Now, did I expect you to win by a minute and a half? I thought it was going to be a lot of battling out there, but you came out there and you won that race pretty handedly. So it was cool to see all that, but I guess I wasn't surprised by it. And I'm sure with all your training that you've been doing, it probably wasn't too much of a surprise to you, or was it?
It really wasn't. I think with all the hard work there in the off season, I came in and I kind of I didn't expect to win, but I had just that gut feeling in myself and in my mind that I could do it. It's just a matter of kind of piecing everything together and being smart and just kind of making it happen in a way. And yeah, I mean, I knew I could, and honestly, like the whole team, they basically made bets on me that I would win. So I had a little bit of pressure, and there's a bunch of bets going around, but luckily I made it happen, and was able to obviously get that win. And but yeah, I don't think it was too surprising. But honestly, for me, it was kind of like surreal, and just kind of put everything in perspective, and had to pinch myself that night just to make sure I wasn't dreaming a little bit.
Man, that's insane, because that's your first career XC2 win. But one thing I noticed that you said in the interview after the race, directly after when you came off the track, is you said you told yourself when you went to bed the night before that you were going to win that race. How much confidence does that give you coming into the race on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had this feeling that I would win, and just that, let alone, I think the mental side in our sport is huge. And if you have the mental side, obviously most of the riders have the talent and fitness. So that was just big for me, just believing in myself. And obviously the team believed in me as well. They knew I could win. And but yeah, I just had a lot of confidence in myself. And but luckily it played out, and I was able to win.
Sweet. And yeah, I was able to see your mechanic, Lucas Statham. I saw him down there at the finish line right before I saw you. And when I was over at the shop a few weeks ago, the first thing Lucas said is, wait until you see Mike ride this bike. He said, you're not going to believe your eyes when you see how well he's been riding this thing. So as soon as I saw him Sunday after the race, I said, man, you didn't lie to me at all. And he just looked at me and said, I told you. So it was really, really cool to see all that come together. But a big thing with you is how much you've been training, how many miles you've been putting in on the road bike, how much you've been riding. And I think that shows when I was looking at the lap times. Your last 3 laps is when you really started to gap second place. So your 4th lap was 20 seconds faster, your 5th lap was 15 seconds faster, and your last lap of that gnarly race was almost a minute faster than second place. So how well do you feel with your conditioning and with your fitness as of round 1?
Yeah, it obviously feels really good. And yeah, I actually looked at my lap times, and they were all really consistent. And yeah, I was just stoked at the end to come on strong those last 3 laps, and just put a hard charge on and kind of separate myself from those other 3 guys I was with most of the race. And I think for me, it was really kind of like a weight lifted off the shoulders. Just all the, I mean, everyone probably says it, but all the hard work during the season or off season is paying off now, and we're seeing that. And I didn't really know where I would stack up on with fitness. I've spent majority of my time here in Travelers West, South Carolina, and I mean, we've had rain days, and the weather's not always like Florida, so it's not like hot and stuff. So I didn't know where I'd be, but I trusted my trainer we have here in town, and I knew he had a good plan for me, and obviously it worked out. And just to see that whole like a minute and a half lead at the end was very satisfying. And going into Florida now, like I have new goals, and I want to win maybe by more or do it again. But yeah, it was good.
Absolutely. And I don't really think there's a maybe in it. I have no doubt that the way you rode this past weekend, that you'll likely grab a few more wins throughout the season. But I mean, it was awesome to see. Awesome to see you come out there swinging. And like we mentioned, it was your first XC2 win. But I got to ask, were you more surprised by getting the win in XC2, or more surprised by the fact you got 5th place overall?
Both were pretty surprising. I figured, like, with the talent in XC2 now, that we'd push each other to a good overall, but I didn't expect to, get top 5 overall. I've never been that high in the overall my whole XC2 career, so that was pretty cool. And like, one of the cool things also was the last 3 laps. I was kind of by myself, so I was just like, pushing pretty hard, and I was able to get 5th, I think, overall in that last lap. I was sitting 6th, I believe, most of the time there, and I was able to pick one more off, so that was kind of cool at the end.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And one thing you just mentioned right before that is you said heading into Florida that your goals have changed a little bit. Now, what were the goals and what has changed about them? I mean, are you still just searching for podiums, or now that you've kind of proved this to yourself, is it kind of 2020 XC2 champion mentality?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the long-term goal here is XC2 champion, and for each race is obviously to win. And even, I mean, I want to go race by race. I mean, we still have 12 more races, so anything can happen. But as long as we're on the podium every race and we cap off a bunch more wins, I think we can do it this year. And but yeah, as far as like goals now, I want to win obviously the rest of them. I think it's possible, and then but yeah, just keep climbing the overall as well. If I do win, I want to do really well in the overall. So just keep digging and working hard.
Heck yeah, man! I can't wait to see it. And now, I mean, I got to ask the question. You yourself mentioned the underdog thing and flying under the radar, and as I mentioned, it came up over the weekend. You think you're on everybody's radar now? You think you're still an underdog heading into the rest of the year?
I think, yeah, we have a target on the back now. People aren't going to take me so lightly, and they're probably going to be watching me a little closer now. But I think it's almost, I'd rather have that now, because now I'm in everyone's kind of head and on their mental side. So I'd rather be in their head than I don't know, be the other way around. But I've been watching a lot of like UFC stuff and Conor McGregor, like on YouTube and stuff, and he is really good on the mental game, and he is just in everyone's head, and that's what I want to be. And yeah, I mean, it's just motivating, and yeah,
and it's funny you bring that up, because I'm probably a bigger MMA nerd than I am a dirt bike nerd, and I've become quite the dirt bike nerd. So you're absolutely right with that analogy, with the mentality that he has. I mean, beating people before the fight begins, and so I think you come out here and keep putting a minute and a half on second place, that you might be winning races before you show up, kind of like another guy on an orange bike in that XC1 class. So it's awesome to see, and it's got to do a lot for the confidence.
Yeah, no, like you just said, last year, honestly, I think Ben Kelly was in all our heads. He pretty much put a hurting on all of us, and we basically, I mean, no one wants to say it, or no one probably would say it, but we were all racing for almost second place. He was in all our heads, and that's what I want to do this year. With winning the first round by a minute, I didn't expect that, but yeah, I just want to keep doing that, and put a hurting on everyone if I can.
Heck yeah. Well, Mike, love the mentality going into it, man. It was awesome to see and awesome to hear from you. Really appreciate your time to talk to me. Is there who are the people that you'd like to say thank you to that's helping you out going into this year?
Yeah, just I think Randy Hawkins for bringing me on the team. I had a not so good 2 years. Had good podiums last year, but yeah, just him reaching out to me and bringing me on board, and seeing something I didn't, and yeah, and then the whole Yamaha Corporation, and then just all the Ampro Yamaha sponsors. I mean, there's a whole list of them. I won't bore everyone with that, but yeah, just Lucas, my mechanic. He's been a great supporter of me just coming down here to South Carolina and living and getting situated. And then, yeah, my girlfriend, the whole family. But yeah, just thank you for bringing me on this podcast. It was cool, and hopefully I can be on some more.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Looking forward to it. But thanks again for your time, Mike. And like I said, we're looking forward to seeing the rest of the season from you, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity to call a few more of them as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
So there you have it, hearing from the man himself, the round number 1 XC2 winner, AmPro Yamaha's Mike Witkowski, as we mentioned, 5th place overall on his way to his first career XC2 win. So super pumped for Mike. I know he's been putting in a lot of work down there with the Yamaha crew, and not only just this year, just over the past few years in general. I know he dealt with some shoulder problems in the past. Him and I kind of talked about that based off of my shoulder problems, so I think he's got that all dialed in and all healed up now. But now it's just grind time for Mike Witkowski as he sets his goals on the 2020 season. So really cool to be able to hear from him and be able to catch up with him. But just a couple spots ahead of him in the overall. Your 3rd place rider on the weekend, 3rd place rider overall, 3rd place in the XC1 class. Former champion Josh Strang went out there and got it done. Josh rode really strong throughout the race. I know there was a large portion of the race where him and Jordan Ashburn, they actually got linked up together. They're both teammates on that Babbitt's Online Monster Energy Kawasaki, so I think they linked up and kind of pushed each other and helped each other out before Jordan didn't quite catch what happened to him, but Jordan ended up finishing 5th place. So Stu got around Jordan, but still, nevertheless, an impressive ride by all of those guys in the XC1 class. Stu Baylor, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He's on that brand new bike, that brand new Sherco. So everything is different for him, and I think that was a very, very strong showing that they had at round number 1. It definitely shows that they have potential, and it definitely shows that they have a lot to build on and a solid platform and a solid team behind them moving forward into this race season. So I would certainly expect to see some of those Shercos up towards the front in some GNCCs here soon. We got Florida and Georgia in back-to-back weekends, so they got 2 weeks to get everything dialed in and tested between now and then. But no doubt in my mind that one of them Shercos will be on the podium before the year is out. Moving back into our 3rd place rider, Josh Strang. He called in. We got a chance to talk with him and talk about his race and hear a little bit more about his training efforts and really his mind and his mentality and his goals going into the new season. So without further ado, we're going to go to the phone line now with a former Sprint Enduro champion, a former XC1 champion, and a former ISDE World Trophy champion on the Australian team, the Babbitt's Online Monster Energy Kawasaki rider of Josh Strang. Josh, how's everything going with you today?
Yeah, not too bad. A lot of formers there, but yeah, we're going good.
All right, well, good deal, man. Like I said, I appreciate you taking the time to sit here and talk with us. Congratulations, first of all, on grabbing that podium this past weekend at Big Buck. I know last year was really a big learning year for you. I mean, switching bikes, switching programs, I'm sure that's a big change. Well, you still got on the podium last year and then unfortunately got hurt right after that. How good does it feel to start 2020 on the box and already match your GNCC podiums from last year at the first round?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. Last year was, like, I had fun last year. Like you said, on the new bike and a new team and everything. But it was good. Last year we enjoyed it, had fun, and that's what I'm trying to do. And this year, especially, just want to enjoy going racing. I don't want it to be a pain or be stressful. You know, I'll be 32 this year, so I just want to enjoy going racing, spending time with my friends and family especially, and then I think that will translate into good results, and it did on the weekend. So yeah, last year we only got one podium last year at the GNCCs, and I definitely wanted more than that, but I mean that's just how it goes. So this year to start off with a 3rd is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing you mentioned there that you also mentioned in your post-race interview is the word fun, saying that you're out there having fun, focusing in on getting back to that. And like you said, it seems like the more fun you're having, the results will follow that. But in addition to that, I know that, like I said, switching brands probably had to throw some wrenches in there as far as getting the bike set up. Is it safe to say that going into 2020, you got everything dialed in, figured out, and really comfortable on that Kawasaki now?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, like you said, on the weekend I mentioned having fun, and that's why I started riding the motorcycle in the first place. So I never started riding to expect to get paid to race. So it was always just about fun and sometimes, I mean, I think all of us could probably agree on it. Sometimes getting paid to race motorcycles isn't always fun. It's a job, like anything else in the end, and sometimes it just takes a toll on everything, and it just makes life. I mean, it's just a job. It's like a job, and it makes life difficult sometimes when results don't come your way and that sort of stuff. And so trying to keep it fun is the most important thing for me this year, I reckon. And, so as far as that goes, and then the bike. I mean, last year we had some problems, or not problems, just took us a little while getting set up early in the year, and actually we're on the same setting we ended at Ironman, so on the weekend. So we haven't changed anything. We could probably do a little bit of changing, but for right now we're pretty good, and the bike's really good. I mean, it's honestly it's not far from stock out of the crate from Kawasaki, so which makes it easy for me and makes it easy for the regular person to go buy one and go race as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you also mentioned through your interview that in addition to fun, you want to help sell more Kawasaki. So I'm glad you said that right there at the end, because that bike does come pretty much everything you need to be able to go out and be competitive at a race. But I do want to ask, there has been a big increase in the green bikes, especially in the woods, between last year and this year. I mean, I personally know several buddies that are on Kawasaki's now that weren't before. How much pride do you take in that, knowing that really you and Jordan and Kawasaki and this Babbitt's Online team coming back into off-road is a big reason why we're seeing more Kawasaki's out there?
Yeah, I'd like to think that we have something to do with it, sure. I mean, that's what the manufacturers pay us guys for, is to sell bikes. So, I mean, yeah, we go racing to win races, but the end goal is advertisement and selling motorcycles. So, if I can be that friendly guy and go talk to, I know you and I have some of the same friends, and I know some of the guys that are on Kawasaki's, and I mean, I can go up and talk to those guys and have a laugh, and on an off weekend, I mean, we can go out and have a beer and just hang out and talk non-motorcycle related stuff. And I think if I can do that and eventually somewhere along the line can sell some Kawasaki's to some people, then I think I'm doing my job. And I think also a good thing that Kawasaki has going is the bikes are cheap, man. Like compared to some of the other bikes, they're really cheap. So I think for a privateer or just someone trying to go racing on the weekend or just riding for fun, I mean, it makes sense just to go and buy one of those bikes. And I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy. People are starting to realize that they're good quality and the price is right. So I think that's really helping as well. So I think we have some stuff to do with it, but I also think Kawasaki have a good program going as far as they're getting their bikes out there for sale and that sort of stuff at the right price as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to those things being very cost effective when you buy them, Kawasaki is actually either the leader or tied for the lead as far as paying out for contingency each race too. So even more incentive that you can use that money to help pay the bike off.
Yeah, and I think I looked briefly, and I know that I did see they had good contingency across the board, and I think they pay for almost every class too, which is really cool. So, I mean, for me, I get my contingency is separate, but for anyone else, like a pro guy who wanted to just come and race a one-off race at a GTC, if they get fifth place, they're getting paid a good amount, you know. So it's it's cool for everyone racing from the pro class down to is it Silver Masters or something? Something like that.
The 70 plus class?
Yeah, so if a 70-year-old guy wants to go buy a KX450, if he can hold on to that thing for 3 hours, then good on him for one, and then he can also make a couple of bucks while he's at it.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. But going back to this weekend, I mean, Big Buck, you come out there running good throughout the whole race. I mean, I think you came around 6th on the first lap, but then you worked your way back up through the pack and ran right there in that third place position. I know you said that there were some opportunities where you could have passed a little bit earlier on to keep the Russells in sight, but you still led a charge and came back through the pack and were riding in that third place spot. But Stu Baylor, obviously switching bikes, switching brands. He's got a lot going on. He was quite a bit behind you and ended up making up a lot of time going into the last 2 laps of the race. And going into the last lap, you and Stu had the 2 fastest times of the entire class, or really of the entire race. So that battle for that last podium spot was definitely hard earned by you. Did you know how much time Stu was gaining on you? And did you feel that pressure and feel Stu coming up behind you going into that white flag lap?
Yeah, no, the start of the race, I felt like there was probably a few passes I should have made a little earlier. I just think I just settled into it too quickly. And I mean, I believe I could have kept closer to the one Russell. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, I feel like I could have been a little more competitive than I was, but I still feel like I had a really good day regardless. So, and then as far as Stu goes, I think I got into third, end of the third lap, and I think we pretty much stayed about the same. I think it was like 15 to 20 seconds there for 2 laps, and then going into the last lap, I think I had 17 seconds or something, and then about I think it was the 2 mile mark. A lapper got out of my way, and I ended up trying to jump a little gully, and I was just off balance, and I ended up center punching a tree. So that was on the last lap, and that's what kind of made the pace go up a little bit, because I feel if I wouldn't have crashed, the gap could have stayed fairly similar and manageable. And then I guess halfway through that last lap, I think I remember either hearing Stu or I saw him come up a hill when the track was going the other way. So I was like, oh, he's getting pretty close. So Stu likes to go. Stu will bury himself at a race. So he's not afraid to empty all the reserves and do as good as he can at the end. So yeah, I think the crash hurt me a little bit, but I mean, I was able to. I think he got within about 5 seconds, so I still feel like that's fairly manageable. I just had to ride smart and hard there towards the end.
Yeah, and it's actually really cool hearing that, because at home or even wherever you're at on the track, obviously you can't see 14 miles of trail. So I actually had no idea that you went down on that last lap and were still able to get back up in time and maintain that lead. But one of the things that, and I'll let you go here, I know you're about to go riding, but one of the things that I realized going into this season is that you are the only person that is not named Caleb Russell that has won a GNCC overall championship that's racing this year. And then, so knowing that and coming into the season, everyone's so pumped on you getting a podium. You're pumped on getting a podium. And this is kind of more of me being a fan perspective. In some ways, does it kind of bug you that people are excited about a podium? Like, are you happy with a podium, or are you going out every race trying to win these things?
No, I mean, yeah, I'm pumped with a podium. Always happy to have a good result. And
yeah, I didn't mean that in a bad way by any means. I was just
yeah. No, I think if I put in the effort, I mean, I said it on the weekend too, going into my 14th season, so I've been at it a while, and I'm not old, but there's some guys coming through that are going fast, and so for me to get up on the podium, I mean, I'm happy with it. Sure, I'd love to win, but I got to be on my game if I want to win a GNCC. So I'll be happy to get on podiums throughout the year, and if I can click off a win there, I'll be pretty pumped with it. So for sure.
Awesome, and yeah, I meant that more in the fact that, to me, I mean, it's not a surprise that you're on the podium. We know you have the speed. You've won championships there. You've won championships at sprints. You've been part of that gold medal ISDE team. So I meant it more of the fact that it's not a surprise that you're on the podium. I think that's something that we'll see more of this year. But like I said, man, congratulations on the ride this past weekend. It was awesome to see you up there on the box. And is there anybody that you'd like to say thank you to, Josh, that you didn't mention already?
Just Babbitt's Online, Monster Energy, Kawasaki, and then everyone that helps out, like Zelly, my mechanic, Fred Andrews, obviously my wife Cameron, Maverick. It's good to have the support and everything, and then and there was a lot of South Carolina fans there this weekend, so all the Carolina people. So it's good, excited to go racing. We have a sprint this weekend and then 2 GNCCs back-to-back, so we got some racing coming up, so it should be good.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Josh, for taking the time out, and good luck this weekend, and we'll see you out there.
Yeah. Bye, man. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.
So big thanks once again there to Josh for jumping on a phone call with us. He was on his way to go riding today, somewhere to get some seat time in. He'll be at the Sprint Enduro this weekend, where he was the champion the year before last. He's also got a strong sprint contender living with him there in Lyndon Snodgrass. He's actually riding for the same Kawasaki team, and he's from the same country of Australia. So Josh is able to help Lyndon out. Lyndon is there staying with him, and as I mentioned, they were on their way to go riding this morning, and he was able to stop and speak with us for a little bit there and get caught up with things. But I hope you guys are liking the shows. I hope you guys are enjoying the new stuff coming out. I hope you guys are enjoying these interviews and kind of hearing a little bit of a different perspective, and not necessarily a rushed couple-minute long post-race interview. Trying to ask some good questions to really get a lot out of these people, and just so we can learn more as fans. So once again, if you like the show, please let a friend know about it, tell them about it, share the link, or shoot me a message. Let me know what you'd like, what you don't like. Also, whatever app you're listening to this on, don't forget to go up and hit that subscribe button. That means a lot. Also, if you want to leave a review, leave a rating, I highly encourage you to do so. As we continue to get this thing to grow, I hope we can kind of tailor it more towards what everybody's looking for and what everybody wants to hear, so that we can keep bringing good content and keep bringing eyeballs into off-road to grow the sport, to grow the coverage, and ultimately grow the lines, the starting lines that we're all on each and every single weekend. Don't forget, this weekend, Kendall Full Gas Sprint Enduro, it is in Georgia, and then the following weekend we will be in Florida for the GNCC. Also this weekend there's a Mid-East Hare Scramble, and there's no doubt in my mind that there is a local race near you. I don't know all of them, so do some research, do some digging. I guarantee there's a race within a few hours from you wherever you're listening to this at. So go out, get on a dirt bike, and go have some fun this weekend. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. I was Tyler Shepherdson. We will talk to you on the next episode of On the Pipe Podcast. Bye.